The apartment trembled violently, a low, guttural groan rising from beneath the floorboards as a crimson stain seeped through the worn wood, pulsing like a living heartbeat. Alex stumbled backward, his boots slipping on the slick surface, his breath hitching as the air thickened with a rancid metallic stench that clawed at his throat. The stain wasn't just blood, it moved, tendrils snaking outward like veins, reaching for him with a grotesque hunger. Above, the ceiling sagged and creaked, as if an unseen weight pressed down, threatening to crush them all. Outside, the city erupted into chaos. Car alarms screeched in discordant harmony, windows shattered in a cascade of glass, and a neighbor's piercing wail cut off mid-breath, swallowed by silence. The ghosts weren't confined to Alex's apartment anymore. They had unleashed hell upon the world. Alex's heart pounded as he pressed his back against the wall, the plaster cold and damp against his spine. The living room, once a sanctuary of chipped furniture and faded memories, was now a battlefield. The crimson stain spread with relentless intent, curling around the legs of the coffee table, which groaned and splintered under an invisible force. The TV flickered on its own, static crackling into a chorus of distorted screams that echoed through the apartment. Daily life, already fraying since Alex touched the monolith 3 nights ago, was unraveling completely. He could hear the city beyond the walls descending into madness. Sirens wailed, dogs howled, and the distant thud of something heavy crashing through a building shook the floor. Lily burst into the room, her dark hair wild, her eyes wide with terror, yet blazing with determination. She threw herself at Alex, her nails digging into his arm as she clung to him. "Alex, what's happening?" Her voice trembled, but her grip was unyielding, a lifeline of love tethering her to him amidst the nightmare. Her presence was a beacon, a reminder of why he fought. Her warmth, her courage, her unwavering faith in him despite the horrors they faced. Before he could answer, the door slammed open, and Jason and Mark stumbled in, breathless and disheveled. Jason clutched a baseball bat, its wood stained with a dark, tar-like substance that dripped onto the floor. "It's chaos out there," he panted, his voice raw with panic. "People are seeing things, shadows moving, attacking." I saw Mrs. Carter clawing at her own face, screaming about something inside her. Mark, ever the stoic one, shoved the door shut and wedged a chair under the knob, his hands steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. "We're not leaving him," he snapped, cutting off Jason's muttered suggestion to flee. The group was a fragile alliance, their friendship tested by fear, but still holding, for now. The stain pulsed faster, a sickening rhythm that synced with Alex's racing heartbeat. The floorboards buckled, cracking apart with a wet, tearing sound that sent a shiver down his spine. Blood sprayed upward in a geyser, splattering his face and chest, hot and sticky against his skin. He wiped his eyes, blinking through the red haze, and saw it. A spiral staircase emerging from the rupture, its steps glistening with gore, each one carved with jagged runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. The air grew heavy, oppressive, as if the apartment itself was suffocating under the weight of what lay below. Outside, the chaos intensified. Through the cracked window, Alex glimpsed a car levitating past, its headlights flickering like dying stars. The driver pounded on the glass, his mouth open in a silent scream as shadowy tendrils coiled around his throat. A child's tricycle rolled down the street on its own, its bell chiming an eerie tune, while a flock of crows exploded into the sky, only to dissolve into black mist mid-flight. Daily life was no longer a routine of mundane struggles. It was a slaughterhouse, a canvas for the ghost's relentless terror. Lily's grip tightened, her breath hitching as she stared at the staircase. "We can't stay here," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing hum emanating from the abyss. Jason paced, his bat swinging nervously, while Mark rummaged through his backpack, pulling out a flashlight and a pocket knife. "We need to fight," Mark said, his tone grim. "Whatever's down there, it's coming for us anyway." Alex's hand slipped into his pocket, fingers brushing the key he'd used to lock the monolith's door, the key that had trapped the ghosts, or so he'd thought. It burned against his skin, a searing heat that pulsed in time with the stain. He yanked it out, the metal glowing faintly, and felt a surge of power ripple through him. "Stay back," he shouted, thrusting his hands forward. Golden energy chains erupted from his palms, crackling with supernatural fury, their links shimmering like molten fire. They lashed through the air, a whip of light and force, and struck at the darkness above the staircase. A ghost lunged upward, its form a grotesque mockery of humanity, its face eyeless, its mouth stretched into an endless scream, its limbs twisted and elongated. The chains caught it mid-air, wrapping around its torso with a sizzle of burning flesh. Alex yanked hard, and the ghost exploded into a shower of black ichor, splattering the walls and ceiling. The room shook, the windows rattling in their frames, but more shapes stirred below, shadows with claws, whispers with teeth. Lily gasped, pressing closer to Alex as the ichor dripped from the ceiling, pooling at their feet. Her love for him was a tangible force, a defiance against the horror threatening to swallow them. "You can do this," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "You've got the power. Use it." Her faith in him was unshakable, a rock amidst the storm, and it fueled his resolve. He nodded, squeezing her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Jason dropped his bat, the clatter lost in the cacophony of the city's collapse. "This is insane," he muttered, running a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. "We're not soldiers, Alex. We're just us." His fear was palpable, a crack in their friendship that widened with every passing second. Mark snorted, kicking the bat back to him. "Pick it up, coward. We're in this together, whether you like it or not." The tension between them was a live wire, sparking with every word, but their loyalty to Alex held them in place. The stain on the floor pulsed again, and the staircase seemed to grow, its edges sharpening into jagged spikes. Alex's key burned hotter, and he clenched his fist around it, the pain grounding him. "They're not stopping," he said, his voice rough. "They're tearing everything apart, our home, our city, our lives." He glanced out the window, where a woman staggered down the street, her body jerking unnaturally as ghostly hands erupted from her chest, dragging her into the pavement. A delivery truck crashed into a lamppost, its driver leaping out only to be swallowed by a swarm of shadowy figures that peeled from the asphalt like living tar. Daily life was dead. The ghosts had turned the world into a grotesque parody of itself. Grocery stores looted by spectral hands, schools abandoned as children vanished into thin air, parks overrun by whispering shadows that devoured anything living. Alex's apartment was the last bastion, a crumbling fortress against an unstoppable tide. And now that tide was breaking through. Lily pulled him toward the kitchen, her eyes scanning the room. "We need a plan," she said, her voice rising above the chaos. "You locked them once. You can do it again." Her love was a weapon, sharpening his focus, but the doubt in Jason's eyes and the grim set of Mark's jaw told him the group was fracturing. "She's right," Mark said, pulling a bag of salt from his pack. "We can't run forever. Let's fight smart." The floor shuddered and a low growl rumbled from the staircase, shaking the walls. Pictures fell, glass shattering, and the crimson stains surged forward, lapping at their feet. Alex's chains flared brighter, coiling around his arms like living armor. "I'll go down," he said, his voice firm. "You stay here. Keep them out." Lily shook her head, stepping closer. "Not without you," she insisted, her love a fierce, unyielding force. Jason hesitated, then nodded, gripping his bat. Mark sprinkled salt across the threshold, muttering, "Hold the line." Alex approached the staircase, the key searing his palm as he gripped it tighter. The air grew colder with each step, the metallic stench overwhelming, and the runes on the steps glowed brighter, casting an eerie red light that danced across his face. The city's screams faded, replaced by a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through his bones. He glanced back at Lily, her silhouette framed by the flickering kitchen light, her eyes locked on him with a mix of fear and hope. "Be careful," she whispered, her voice cutting through the noise like a lifeline. He descended, the stairs slick under his boots, each one squelching as if alive. The walls of the abyss pulsed, veined with crimson, and shadowy figures flickered at the edges of his vision. Ghosts, dozens of them, their forms shifting between human and monstrous. One lunged, its claws slashing at his chest, and Alex swung his energy chains, the golden links slicing through its torso. It burst apart in a spray of ichor, but another took its place, then another, an endless swarm clawing at him from the darkness. Above, the apartment shook as Lily, Jason, and Mark fought their own battle. Lily's scream pierced the air as a ghost smashed through the window, its skeletal hands grabbing for her. She swung a frying pan, the metal cracking against its skull, and Mark hurled salt, the grains sizzling as they burned into its flesh. Jason swung his bat, shattering a ghost's arm, but more poured in, their whispers a cacophony of hate. "Alex, hurry!" Lily shouted, her voice raw with desperation. Alex pushed deeper, the staircase spiraling into an abyss that seemed to stretch forever. His chains lashed out in a frenzy, each strike a burst of light and force, shredding ghosts into oblivion. Their screams echoed, a symphony of agony, but they kept coming, eyeless faces, mouths stretched wide, claws dripping with black blood. He stumbled, his leg sinking into a step that softened like flesh, and a ghost seized the moment, its claws raking across his back. Pain exploded through him, hot and sharp, but he roared, spinning and driving Void Blade, a shimmering, newly awakened weapon, through its chest. The ghost dissolved, its wail fading into the hum. The abyss widened, revealing a cavernous chamber where the staircase ended. The walls dripped with blood, pooling into a lake that reflected nothing but darkness. Alex's key pulsed, its heat searing through his glove, and he held it aloft, the glow illuminating the chamber. Shadows writhed at the edges, coalescing into a towering figure, a ghost general, its skull crowned with jagged bone, its body a mass of writhing tendrils. Its eyes glowed red, twin embers in a void, and its voice boomed, shaking the ground. "The monolith owns you now." The general stepped forward, each stride cracking the stone floor, its tendrils lashing like whips. Alex's hand burned, the key's heat spreading up his arm, and he felt a surge of power unlike anything before. "You're wrong," he snarled, his voice echoing with defiance. He thrust his hands forward, and energy chains erupted in a golden storm, coiling around the general's arms and legs. He yanked hard, pulling the massive spirit toward him, and drove his fist into its chest. The impact unleashed a shockwave, cracking the walls and sending blood spraying from the lake. But the general laughed, a sound like grinding glass that burrowed into Alex's skull. "You're just beginning, boy," it sneered, its tendrils snapping the chains with a flick. It swung a clawed hand, and Alex ducked, the claws raking the air above his head. He rolled, Void Blade flashing, and slashed at its leg, carving a gash that oozed black ichor. The general roared, stomping down, and Alex leapt aside, the ground shattering where he'd stood. Above, Lily's scream echoed again, sharper this time, and Alex's heart clenched. She was fighting for her life, for their home, for him. He circled the general, chains and blade working in tandem, lashing, slashing, striking. Each hit was a burst of light and sound, ichor splattering the floor. But the general was relentless, its tendrils whipping faster, its claws tearing at his defenses. Alex's back burned from the earlier wound, blood soaking his shirt. But he pushed through, fueled by Lily's love, Jason's loyalty, Mark's grit. He ducked under a swipe and drove Void Blade upward, piercing the general's chest. It staggered, its laugh turning to a gurgle, and Alex unleashed Ghost Banishment, a supernova of light exploding from his core. The general shrieked, its form disintegrating into ash, the chamber trembling as the shockwave rippled outward. Panting, Alex staggered to his knees, the key still burning in his hand. The lake of blood rippled and the staircase pulsed, beckoning him deeper. He glanced up, hearing Lily's voice faintly. "Alex, come back." The general's words echoed in his mind. The monolith owns you now. And he felt a chill. Daily life was gone, the city a ghost-infested ruin. And this was only the beginning. He rose, determination hardening his resolve. He'd fight for Lily, for his friends, for the world he'd lost. But as he turned to climb, Lily's scream cut off abruptly, replaced by a guttural growl. He raced up the stairs, bursting into the apartment to find her collapsed, her body convulsing. Her eyes flared with an unnatural glow, red and fierce. And Alex froze, his breath catching. The room darkened, the bloody staircase humming behind him, and a question clawed at his soul. Had the general possessed her, or was something darker, something tied to the monolith, awakening inside the woman he loved? The key burned hotter, and Alex faced a dilemma. Save her now or descend further to stop the source? Lily's body stilled, her glowing eyes locked on Alex, unblinking, alien. The apartment fell silent, the city's chaos a distant murmur, and the staircase pulsed like a heartbeat, calling him back. Had he won a battle only to lose her? Was this the monolith's next move, or a new horror entirely? Curiosity gnawed at him as he reached for her, unsure if he'd find love or a monster in her gaze. To be continued. Stay tuned, like, comment, subscribe for more videos.